Our next guests have been part of the entertainment industry since they were born. Their grandparents were the iconic couple on the TV show Ozzie and Harriet, which debuted in 1952. And their father was teen idol, actor, and musician Ricky Nelson, who died tragically in a plane crash on New Year's Eve, 1985. Twin brothers Matthew and Gunnar Nelson were supposed to be on that very flight, but at last-minute phone call from Dad saved their lives. A few years later, the book Duo, Nelson dominated the music charts, selling millions of records and becoming heartthrobs like their father before them. I spoke with the twins about growing up in a famous family, how they would wound up flat broke at the peak of their careers, and the significance of their new memoir, What Happened to Your Hair.
I can't live without your love and affection. I can't face another night on my own. It's got me all shook up, 'cause I've been finding out a lot about you, girl. You're all I need tonight. It's never felt so right. Only after the rain can you hope to find true love again.
Okay, I am seeing double. It's not because of the fun that I had last night. There really are identical twins sitting in front of us, Gunnar and Matthew. Your Nelson family tree is amazing. It actually landed you all into the Guinness World Book of Records. So let's go through it. Ozzie and Harriet Nelson were your grandparents, and they were TV stars.
Yes, and many things. Big band musicians, #1 hit makers, radio stars.
Oh, what a wonderful way
There's a minister
to give the parson his pay.
TV stars, but yeah, Ozzie and Harriet, icons, yeah.
All right, and then it moved on to your dad, Ricky Nelson, of course, singer and actor as well.
I'm sure not many of you know that one of my parents is very talented musically. I'm sure with a little coaxing, we can get my mother to come up and sing a song for her.
He actually was personally responsible for smuggling rock and roll into mainstream American living rooms.
Get along home, Cindy, Cindy, get along home.
He sold 500 million singles in his career with a B, and reinvented himself as a country rocker with a band called the Stone Canyon Band, which has been credited as the first true country rock band. He had an amazing, 3 careers in one.
Yep, movie star with the Rio Bravo. The first phrase of teenage idol was coined to describe him on Life magazine. Hello, Mary Lou, Traveling Man, Poor Little Fool, Lonesome Town.
Garden
Party.
Party.
I mean,
yeah, for all those youngsters out there, please Google him, ladies. He was insanely good looking. I don't know what happened to the two of us.
No. You got those genes, all right? Because, again, those genes were all around you. Your uncle was David Nelson, actor and producer. Your mother, Kristen Nelson, actress, sister of Mark Harmon. Identical twins, you two. And then, of course, your sister, Tracy, was also an actress. All right. I mentioned Guinness World Book of Records. What did you land in that book for?
We are the only family in history to have 3 successive generations of #1 hit makers in it. Our grandparents actually started out with a big band and had #1 in 1935 with a song called And Then Some.
I think you're gorgeous, you're charming, darling, you're perfect, and then some.
And then our father had Traveling Man and Poor Little Fool.
We walked in the sand of Waikiki, and I held you oh so tight.
And Matthew and I had I Can't Live Without Your Love and Affection in 1990, which put the family in the Guinness Book.
All right, growing up in a family with the entertainment industry all around you and in your home, your uncle was George Harrison, often came for breakfast. Bob Dylan would crash on your sofa.
Totally normal childhood, of course.
We called him our uncle. We called him Uncle George. He wasn't literally our uncle, but
I wish, man, that would have been great. But he lived right next door. We actually grew up in a really interesting time in music history. Matt and I were born in 1967. So our dad was writing songs for the first time. He had 2 careers. In the 50s, that was a time when a lot of the artists were doing songs that other people had written, and they were just kind of translating them. Our dad was working on the family television show, which was the #1 television show in the country at the time. And he would go in after he would film all day. In the evenings, he would record. And basically, it was a kind of time where they would record on a Friday, and it was on the radio on a Monday.
Wow.
And things were working really, really quickly. The second phase of his career, after the whole teen idol stuff, he started writing songs and heard a particular sound in his head, and he put a band together called the Stone Canyon Band. And that's what Matthew and I grew up around. Our father always had an acoustic guitar in his hand. He was always writing. There were all these crazy, fun, hairy people coming over to the house all the time.
Like Bob Dylan crashing on your sofa.
He was just a homeless guy in the living room that wouldn't leave, you know.
Linda Ronstadt showing up at the door to hang out. That
Yeah,
kind of
you know, like the Buffalo
Cass Elliott
Springfield.
being one of your babysitters.
That's right, you know, because it was totally normal for kids to be driven through the first McDonald's drive-through in Studio City, California, in a beautiful white Rolls-Royce convertible by Mama Cass, who's your babysitter.
everyone
my
goes through
God.
that. Totally normal stuff.
Yeah.
As teenagers, you live with your dad in the home of the former actor Errol Flynn. So it just goes on and on and on when it comes to the entertainment industry surrounding you. Your family had a holiday tradition, and that was during the Christmas, New Year time that you really focused on being together and staying home. But when your dad got divorced, that cost him a lot of legal fees, and he needed to make some money, so he decided to take a gig. And that was a fateful flight plan. And if you would take it from there, because this just kind of reminds us all of how precious life is, and you never know from one second to the next how things can change.
Brings us back to why we wrote the memoir that we wrote. We've got a best-selling book that we wrote called What Happened to Your Hair. The reason why we wrote it now is because it's the 40th anniversary of our father's plane crash. And you're right, we were all living together. So it was 1985 going to 86. Divorce was rampant. We were latchkey kids, and we were very, very close to our father. Obviously, we loved him, and we grew up wanting to be like him as musicians. And the court had put us with our mother, who we did not get along with. It's in the book as well. But we had about a 6-month period of time where we were living with our dad and getting along great. And as divorces are expensive, especially for men in California, he had to go on the road at that time, didn't really want to. We were planning on going with him. He had a DC-3 airplane, classic plane that he bought from Jerry Lee Lewis that we were supposed to fly on for the first time.
Not a small plane, big one.
And he called us the night before. He must have had a premonition. And that phone call saved our lives, because he said he actually didn't want us to fly down to Alabama and meet him and then fly with him to his New Year's Eve show. And we just told him that we would just wait for him to get back, and of course he never did. But we've been actually trying to bear the family torch ever since. I think we've done a pretty good job of it.
An image of you is that never was such. I sing to your soul, to your strength, to your touch.
You know, today something happens and you get a phone call right away. Your phone's right there, you know, in your hand. Back then, how did you two find out about it?
Not the right way. It's taken a lot of years to figure that out. I learned about it on the TV that evening, and Matthew on the radio. I actually took offense to it because obviously they're supposed to notify the family first, but I realized over the years that the Nelson family is really a very, very large family and a lot of hearts all over the world. Generations grew up with our family. 14 and a half years, 435 episodes of the family show of a real loving family playing themselves. And America really grew up with the Nelsons at a critical time in its history, coming out of World War II. And so when they heard that Ricky Nelson, who was either the boy next door to them, their first crush, or the guy they wanted to emulate, and luminaries like Fogerty picked up a guitar because they saw our dad singing at the end of the Ozzie and Harriet show. You know, they all felt like they were part of the family. But that's also something that we write about too. We actually set the record straight about what happened on that plane, what caused that crash. There were rumors about drug abuse having something to do with it. The press was awful. We have a love-hate relationship with the press. They've been very unfair to our father. As his sons, we actually just want to set the record straight, which we get to do with this book.
Yeah, also in this book, we take that journey with you, and you touched on it earlier. There's an emotional investment in your family already, and so when you go through things that are tough, you know, we feel that too, and oftentimes people can emotionally map what they're going through at the same time. One of those things that so many people are dealing with is money issues. You all showed a lot of integrity when your father passed away. You took care of his debt.
Well, we're Nelsons, man. That's what we do. Our father always felt that a concept like bankruptcy was dishonorable. And he went through a lot thanks to their divorce and all that. And he never declared bankruptcy because he just felt that would be a blem on the family. So after he passed away, Matthew and I talked about it and decided that we weren't going to do the same thing, even though people around us, we were only 18 at the time. You know, the perception was we're trust fund kids and there should be millions and millions of dollars. Maybe there were before a bad marriage and all that, but by the time our dad died, he was millions in debt. And so we had to make a decision.
Also, the fact was there were a lot of things at stake, namely the family television show, our father's publishing rights, his music, everything that was associated with a bankruptcy goes into the pot. The thought of having complete strangers or equity firms taking control of everything that our dad and our grandparents built was more of a horror show than losing our father, which is tough to say.
It took about 10 years to pay that debt back. We're proud to say that we got it done. And now we've got all 435 episodes of the Ozzie and Harriet show remastered in high def 4K and ready to go. So
stored off the original 35 millimeter film. So besides having our own career, we've really enjoyed, obviously we sold millions of records and people had no idea who Ricky Nelson or Ozzie and Harriet were, which is kind of nice.
What is meant to be? Only time will tell.
Matthew and Gunnar Nelson's new memoir, What Happened to Your Hair, is available now everywhere books are sold. For more information on the Nelson family dynasty, visit greatdayhouston.com for links. And stay tuned because this conversation is not over yet. Catch the conclusion of the interview soon on Great Day.